His grandmother was horrible. His mum dragged his entire collection of comic books into the bathroom where she did unspeakable things to them. His dad would often disappear, preferring the company of Marlin, and he grew up in New Zealand. Is it any wonder Tony Martin would take to his bedroom, get nude and trampoline upon the bed?
You've just stolen all the good lines now. Tony's just published his second collection of memoirs which chronicle the weird, questionable and oddball events that have created such champagne comedy along the way, and Tony joins us now. Good morning, Tony.
That's good to be here. Maybe you should say on this show, sham wow comedy. Can I get one of those? Why has that guy got a microphone like that? Surely,
I don't know.
Surely there's one there.
I think it's his act.
Are you following me, camera guy?
Well, I was using it because he said if you use it for 30 minutes and you don't say wow, you can get your money back.
Did you?
I did it for 30 minutes. Lots of things I never actually said the word wow. I'm expecting a refund.
Good
I noticed you've gone with $29.95.
I did get asked that on a radio show. A guy just gave it to me. He was just contemptuous that someone had brought a book into his studio. It was like someone had brought a penny farthing onto the radio. It's like, yeah, mate, so I see you've decided to go with a retail price of $24.95. Tell us about that. What can you say to that?
Exactly.
So you've gone with a raised font there. Is that Garamond, mate? What are you thinking?
You've got a thing about font.
I love fonts. Yeah.
Is that because your grandfather established and single-handedly ran the King Country Chronicle?
I was told that. My whole life I was told he was like Charles Foster Kane, that he edited a newspaper.
The statue.
That's right, I was expecting a statue when I went back to it's from Tikawiti is the town. Hello to Tikawiti viewers, maybe watching on the internet.
Is that how you say? Because I kept calling it Kontiki Tiki because I couldn't remember.
That's a bit, I think you've actually hit Auckland there. I think that's a bit high for Tikawiti. You're up in Hobbit country there. You should be down in Isengard. But I went there and my granddad, I told he ran the local newspaper. Turns out he was just one of the typesetters, so I'd been lied to. But he was a typesetter for 67 years and never once made a spelling mistake. He was known as the human dictionary.
That's extraordinary.
And
he was thought of quite
He was thought of quite well, but my grandmother was a hated figure, I discovered, in the town. Sounds terrible, doesn't it, to say that your grandmother was terrible, but I was stopping people in the street, old people just on scooters, and I was collecting what they were saying about my grandmother.
Yeah, on scooters.
So just
with the flags.
like those like Mad Max with pensioners.
No, not the foot one.
That would look good though. I'd like to see that. But they one had a roll bar too. I don't know what goes on in Tikawiti. Demolition Derby with pensioners. But they were saying things like extremely nasty, poisonous, erratic, disruptive. These were words to use to describe my grandmother. One was just a barked obscenity and then he just accelerated to the horizon. The nicest thing I heard about my grandmother was she was quite a character.
Yes, but she had a colourful past, as you discovered, didn't she? She was hounded out of another town. I asked my aunt, who's in her 80s, what did my grandmother do, and she said, well, she was forced to leave Auckland for entertaining sailors. Which I think is a euphemism for something. I don't think it was a juggling act. She was just too entertaining, apparently.
Her name was Violet Sherman.
Yes, her name was Violet. Well, she went through a number of... We go through a lot of surname and caste changes in our family.
Why? Why was that?
There's been a lot of divorces. I'm not allowed to say how many divorces. We actually... The family tree, our family tree, the council have twice told us to prune it back. It's ridiculous. I can't follow it. We have a family reunion and there'll be like, because there's not just, because think about this, if you have a number of divorces and then they get married again and they have children and then they might have stepchildren, like it can splay out. I've got something like, I think there's 30 or 40 stepbrothers, half sisters. We have to have stickers on with introducing written on it if we have a...
That's where I thought the name came from, a nest of occasionals. It's like the often married man and his the amount of in-laws that he collects along the way, a nest of occasionals.
It's a really nice accidental good title because it was basically called that because of the nest of occasional tables.
Which is scarred by.
Well, have you got a photo? Surely you've got. There you go. That is a nest of occasional tables.
Oh, that's what it is.
That's just a 3-table nest. That's not really trying. Our house had a 9 table nest.
Oh, really?
What, like a Russian doll?
Yeah, exactly. Smaller and smaller, and they all have to be returned to the nest by darkness. But I wrote a radio ad, and I left out the word tables. I just said nest of occasional, $79.95, and I was nearly sacked. So that was a nice title. But you're right. I thought about it later. I went, hang on, that's a perfect description for our family.
Yeah.
Just
want to get back to your family. Auntie Dawn had a horrific accident.
Yes,
My aunt did. I hope she's not watching, but she did have an accident that made odd spots around the world. She was standing out the front of her house, talking to a friend, and can I stand up on this program?
Yes.
When the cameras come
you
to
can
this?
do anything and say anything you like.
She's talking to a friend who's in the car. She's standing like this with one foot on the car. Bloke from the council is mowing the lawn across the road, hits the curb, blade snaps off, flies across the road and chops her foot off through the ankle like that. And when she describes it to you, she goes, kadunk. It was just like that. And she said if she had both feet on the ground, she would have lost both feet. And
your grandmother added to
Your
it.
grandmother's
and
reaction?
my grandmother and her had a feud for something like 60 years, constantly. And my aunt says that she was in hospital a week later, and a note arrived from my grandmother. It was just 6 words, and it said, "Too bad it wasn't your head." That's all it said.
Hence the nickname Violent.
As I mentioned, poisonous, extremely nasty.
Is it a shock when you go back to your hometown of Contiki-Tiki? And is it a shock when you go back expecting to, to kind of follow up on all of these great family stories, and you find all of these really atrocious ones?
It is, well, that's it. I think everyone expects that their family is, it's like an old sepia photograph and everyone's wonderful. And there is some great people in my family, but there's so much feuding and fighting and backstabbing and
Hillbilly
lawsuits.
fighting.
Constant this interview will be the subject, doubtless, of a lawsuit in our family.
Speaking of lawsuits, did you track down Pui Parslow?
Now, that is a guy. I've obviously changed the names in the book, but that was the school bully at our school. He's elected 3 years running. He's very good at his job. I looked him up on the internet, and he's now a respected orchardist in New Zealand.
Why did he get the name Pui?
I'm not sure. I'll try and use polite morning language, but
No censor on this show, you say.
There's no lawyers ready to pounce, but he was famous for taking, as I put in the book, spectacular dumps in people's school bags and chucking them in the creek. That was his sort of method, his sort of weapon of choice. And I always figure, wouldn't the spectacular dumps have been enough? Why then have to throw them in the creek? It's kind of
wash them.
It's negating the work of the first part of the gambit.
Yeah, but it's making sure that it soaks into the pores of the bag, isn't it?
It's perhaps we're lingering a little long on this imagery, but everyone has a school bully, and they've got to stay ahead of their competition.
Did you ever want to, after you tracked him down and you found out he was the orchardist, did you want to ring him up and...
I did. I was actually
Take a crap in his school bag?
I was actually quite frightened just seeing a photograph of him on the internet. I was thinking, the fruit at that orchard must be, there's a lot of bruised apricots, I'm guessing.
Listen, Tony, before we go, I noticed you've been doing some work on ABC Radio.
Yeah, I have.
How's that different to the FM experience?
Well, they don't like you to do a segment called Shoot the Celebrity in the Arse, I discovered. That was one of our most popular ones in the old days. But ABC Radio, it's so posh. You've got to use, formal language. You're not allowed to have any opinions if you're an announcer on the ABC, unless you just preface them with the phrase, some have suggested.
Yes.
Or it has been implied in some quarters. Then you can say the most outrageous thing in the world. It has been implied that David Rain was once in the Shantuzis. You could hint at it, but you couldn't actually say it. Sorry, David.
That's all right.
I just thought I'd get a reference in.
And here's the clip now.
Because people, the reason I say that is not to make fun, but because nobody believes me that there was 4 men at one point, wasn't there?
There were 4 men and 4 women. Yeah.
Right.
We used to dress in the Western swing tie and the suits and everything like that. We all had crew cuts.
Surely that's coming back. Surely.
It's got to be.
Why knee you back on
It's
the
my next gig.
Bang.
David hasn't changed his hairstyle. He's sticking with it. All right.
Tony, the book is fantastic. It's an absolute delight to read. Thank you so much for your time this morning. And it's out now.
Thank you for having me.
$24.95.
Cheers.